I never imagined my life would crumble in a single moment. One day, I was living the dream, married to the woman I loved, building a future together, and pushing through the challenges life threw our way. We had plans, hopes, and dreams, and I believed nothing could break us apart. But reality has a way of shattering even the strongest illusions. It all started when I got sick. At first, it was just fatigue and some pain I tried to brush off. But when the diagnosis came, it hit me like a freight train. The doctors told me it would be a long, grueling road to recovery, and I would need every bit of strength and support to make it through. I thought Olivia would be my rock, the one person who would stand by me no matter what. She promised me that we would fight it together. She swore that nothing could break us. I believed her because that's what love was supposed to be, unconditional. Through sickness and health, right? But as the days turned into weeks, I started noticing the little things. The way she avoided my gaze when I talked about treatments, how her touch felt colder, more distant, late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked into the room, excuses about needing fresh air or space when I needed her the most. My gut told me something was wrong, but I refused to believe it. I convinced myself that stress was getting to her, that she just needed time to process everything. After all, it wasn't just my battle, it was ours. Or at least it should have been. Then one evening, as I sat on the couch staring at old photos of us, smiling, carefree, happy, she walked into the room with a look I couldn't read. My heart pounded in my chest as I forced a smile, asking her how her day was. She didn't answer. Instead, she just stood there, hands shaking, eyes full of guilt and regret. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, barely meeting my eyes. My world froze. I couldn't understand what she meant, couldn't process the words. "I'm leaving," she said, louder this time, as if forcing herself to believe it. I asked her why, begged her to explain. Was it the sickness? Was it too much for her? Did I do something wrong? I couldn't comprehend how the woman who promised to stay by my side could just walk away when I needed her the most. She didn't give me a straight answer, just some vague excuses about needing to find herself and feeling trapped. Then, she dropped the real bombshell. She had been seeing someone else. Some guy from her office. Someone who made her feel alive again. The pain was suffocating. My hands shook, my heart pounded, and the room seemed to collapse around me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She gathered a few things, gave me one last glance that almost looked like pity, and walked out the door. I sat there for what felt like hours, drowning in disbelief. The woman I loved, the one I trusted more than anyone, had left me at my lowest. Not just left me, abandoned me. In that moment, I made a vow to myself. I would survive without her. I would get back on my feet, beat this sickness, and rebuild my life from the ground up. And one day, when she realized the mistake she'd made, I'd make sure she saw just how far I'd come without her. That was the day Olivia walked away. The day I lost her and found myself. I used to believe in unconditional love, that no matter what happened, Olivia and I would face it together. I was wrong. The first few weeks of my illness, she played the role of a devoted wife. She brought me tea, fluffed my pillows, and kissed my forehead. But as the weeks stretched into months, her patience thinned. The forced smiles faded. The concern in her voice disappeared. She started coming home later and later. At first, she had excuses. Work ran late, I was with a friend, I just needed some air. But deep down I knew. She wasn't coming home to me because she didn't want to. One night I woke up alone. The other side of the bed was cold. I forced myself to sit up, my body weak and aching, and checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. She didn't come home until sunrise. When I asked where she had been, she sighed like I was exhausting her. Like I was the problem. "Jake, I just needed space," she said, tossing her purse on the table. "This has been a lot." A lot? I was the one who was sick. I was the one fighting for my life. But somehow, in her mind, she was the victim. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think she was just overwhelmed, that she still loved me. But the way she avoided my eyes told me everything. And then, the late nights became more frequent. The excuses got lazier. The distance between us turned into an abyss. One evening, as I lay in bed too weak to get up, I heard her phone vibrate on the nightstand. A name flashed on the screen. Ryan. My stomach twisted. I knew that name. Her coworker. A bad feeling crept up my spine, but I pushed it down. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew. This was the beginning of the end. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Ryan. Her phone kept buzzing, each vibration cutting into me like a blade. I wasn't the type to invade privacy, but something inside me snapped. I needed to know. With shaking hands, I picked up her phone. The message preview was enough to make me sick. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Everything blurred. Last night, the night she needed space. My breath came in ragged gasps. This wasn't just emotional distance. This was betrayal. Before I could read more, I heard footsteps. Olivia walked in, casually scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just shattered our marriage. She looked up and froze when she saw my expression. "Jake, what's wrong?" I held up her phone, my voice barely a whisper. "Who is Ryan?" Her face paled, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for the right lie. And in that moment, I knew there was no saving us. Olivia blinked rapidly, scrambling for words. I could see it in her eyes. The panic, the calculations, asterisk. Ideas in her head turning, trying to find a way out, asterisk. Asterisk, Ryan. She let out a forced laugh. "He's just a friend from work." "You're being ridiculous, Jake. Ridiculous." That word stabbed deeper than any truth ever could. I turned the phone toward her, showing the message still glowing on the screen. "Just a friend?" My voice was eerily calm. She swallowed hard, her mask slipping. I was going to tell you." I let out a sharp laugh, more bitter than I intended. "When? After your next amazing night." Her lips trembled. "Jake, I didn't mean for this to happen." That was the worst part. She actually believed that made it better. Like it was some accident. Like she had tripped and fallen into another man's arms. I felt my body go numb. The sickness that had been eating me alive for months felt insignificant compared to this. She wasn't just leaving me, she had already left. And I was just now catching up. I waited for her to say something, anything that might make me believe this was just a mistake. A terrible lapse in judgment. But all she did was stare at me, guilt and frustration battling in her expression. She wasn't sorry for cheating. She was sorry for getting caught.
"Jake,"
she sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I think we both know this hasn't been working for a while." I scoffed. Hasn't been working? Or was it just easier to run into someone else's arms instead of facing our problems? Her eyes hardened. There it was, the real Olivia.
"Jake."
The one who didn't want to deal with difficult conversations. The one who had already made her choice. "I don't want to do this right now," she muttered, grabbing her coat. "I'll stay at a friend's place for a few days. We can talk when things calm down." I knew what that meant. She wasn't coming back. I should have felt devastated. I should have begged her to stay, to work things out. But instead, a strange sense of relief settled over me. Because if she could leave this easily, she had never truly been mine to begin with.
"Jake."
The door clicked shut behind her, and just like that, Olivia was gone. I stood in the middle of our apartment, surrounded by the ghost of a life I thought we were building together. Her coffee mug still sat half full on the counter. Her perfume lingered in the air. But the warmth, the love, it had all been a lie. I sank onto the couch, staring at the darkened TV screen. What now? Was I supposed to grieve? Get angry? Smash something? Instead, I just sat there, feeling empty. An hour passed, maybe two. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my daze. A text from Olivia. "I'll come by later for my things. I think this is for the best."
For the best.
She had thrown away years of marriage like it was nothing more than an expired lease. And for what? A guy she barely knew. My chest tightened. No, I refused to be just another fool in her story. She thought she was done with me. But this wasn't over yet. The weight of her message pressed against my chest. But I refused to let it crush me. She thought she could just walk away. Like our marriage was some old coat she could toss aside when it didn't fit her anymore. I stood up, my heart pounding in my ears. If she wanted to leave, fine. But she wasn't going to walk away unscathed. I opened my laptop and started digging. Bank statements, credit card bills, emails. Olivia had always been careless with details, and now that carelessness was about to cost her. Within minutes, I found exactly what I was looking for. Hotel receipts, late-night Uber trips to places she never mentioned, a secret credit card under her name, maxed out on expensive dinners and gifts. She wasn't just cheating, she was spending our money on him. A slow, cold anger settled inside me. I wasn't just some heartbroken husband anymore. I was a man with a plan, and when Olivia came back for her things, she would realize she hadn't lost me. She had lost everything. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. I had everything I needed. Proof of her affair. Proof that she had used our money to fund her little fantasy. And now it was time to make her pay. Olivia thought she was walking away with a fresh start, but she had no idea what was coming. I picked up my phone and made a few calls. A lawyer, a financial advisor, even a locksmith. By the time she walked back through that door, she wouldn't recognize the life she had left behind. An hour later, the sound of keys jingling at the door made me turn. Olivia stepped inside, avoiding my gaze as she moved toward the bedroom. "That was fast," I said, leaning against the wall. She hesitated, as if debating whether to respond. Guilt was written all over her face. "I just came for my stuff," she muttered. I folded my arms, my voice calm but firm. "Take a seat first." She glanced at me, confused. She had no idea what was coming. Olivia hesitated. I could see the gears turning in her mind. Should she listen or just grab her stuff and leave? But something in my voice must have unsettled her because she slowly lowered herself onto the couch. Good, let her squirm. I picked up my laptop and turned it toward her. The screen glowed with evidence. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, Uber rides to places she never mentioned. Her face paled. "What is this?" I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. "This is proof that you didn't just cheat on me, you stole from me. Our money, Olivia. You spent it on him." She swallowed hard, her fingers clenching the fabric of her jeans. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I let the silence hang between us before delivering the final blow. "I already spoke to a lawyer. You won't be getting a single cent from me in the divorce." Her eyes widened, panic creeping in. "You're divorcing me?" I let out a cold laugh. "What did you think was going to happen?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The realization was sinking in. She had just lost everything, and I wasn't done yet. Olivia's lips parted, but no words came out. She was scrambling, searching for something, anything to say that could undo this. "You don't have to do this," she finally whispered, her voice trembling. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, but you did? You had no problem lying to me, sneaking around, and spending our money on him. But now that you're facing the consequences, suddenly it's unfair?" Tears welled up in her eyes. Fate. I had seen this act before. I made a mistake. She tried again. I was confused. Things between us haven't been the same. And he made me feel special. There it was. The classic excuse. I leaned forward, my voice like ice. "He made you feel special? Was it special when you used my money to book hotels with him? Was it special when you snuck around like a coward instead of talking to me?" She flinched, looking away. She had no real defense. "You can keep your little fantasy," I continued. "But I hope he's worth it, Olivia. Because after today, you'll have nothing left." Her breath hitched. Now she was starting to understand. Olivia wiped at her tears, her hands trembling. She was breaking. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate me with emotions. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "We built a life together. You can't just throw it all away." I let out a cold chuckle. "That's rich, coming from you." She shook her head, panic flashing in her eyes. She was realizing there was no way out. "You said you loved me," she tried again. "Doesn't that mean anything?" I sighed, standing up. "It did, until I found out who you really are." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I wasn't falling for it. "You don't have to do this," she pleaded. "I swear, I'll fix it. I'll cut her off." "It's already done, Olivia." The papers are being filed. Your access to our bank accounts? Gone. The car? It's in my name. The apartment? Mine. Her face drained of color. What? I folded my arms. You thought you'd land on your feet, didn't you? Thought you could cheat, lie, and then walk away with half of everything? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, Olivia was truly speechless. Olivia blinked rapidly, like her brain was short-circuiting. She had expected anger, maybe even begging. But not this, not complete and total ruin. You can't do this, she finally choked out. I have rights, I smirked, crossing my arms. Do you? Because according to my lawyer, adultery in a marriage with shared assets gives me the upper hand. You don't get a damn thing, Olivia. Her breath hitched, but nothing. I cut in sharply. I gave you everything. My love, my trust, my support, and you threw it away for some cheap thrill. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the couch. She was unraveling right in front of me. You don't understand, she whispered, voice cracking. He promised me things. He told me we'd be together, that he'd take care of me. I tilted my head, pretending to consider her words. Then I laughed. And where is he now? Silence. I took a step closer. Let me guess, when he found out you had nothing left, he disappeared. Her shoulders slumped. That was my answer. She had thrown away her life for a man who never planned to catch her when she fell. And now, she was crashing. Olivia's breathing was uneven, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an escape. But there was none. He just needs time, she stammered, as if trying to convince herself. He'll come back. I shook my head. No, he won't. Her lips parted, but she didn't argue, because deep down, she knew I was right. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You left me when I was at my weakest, and now, when you have nothing, you expect me to take you back. She swallowed hard. I didn't let her finish. I don't think so, Olivia. A shaky breath escaped her. But I don't have anywhere to go. I shrugged. Not my problem. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't manipulative. They were real, genuine panic. Please, she whispered. I'll do anything. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Then, with a smirk, I delivered the final blow. You already did, Olivia, and that's why you're standing here, with nothing. Her face crumpled. For the first time, she truly understood what she had done, and it was too late to take it back. Olivia's legs wobbled, and for a moment, I thought she might collapse. Reality was finally crashing down on her. I didn't think it would end like this, she whispered, hugging herself like it would somehow shield her from the truth. I scoffed. You didn't think at all, Olivia. Her lips trembled. I just wanted to be happy. I narrowed my eyes. And what about my happiness? Did that ever cross your mind while you were sneaking around behind my back? She flinched like I had slapped her. Good. You have to understand. She tried again. You thought I was done for. I interrupted coldly. You thought I wouldn't make it, so you moved on before I was even gone. Tears slipped down her face, but I felt nothing. The woman standing in front of me wasn't my wife anymore, just a stranger in the ruins of our past. I made a mistake, she choked out. I exhaled sharply. No, Olivia, a mistake is forgetting to turn off the stove. What you did was a choice, over and over again. She covered her mouth, sobbing, but there was no sympathy left in me. She had made her bed. Now, she had to lie in it. Alone. Olivia's sobs filled the silence between us, but I just stood there, arms crossed. She wanted my pity. She wasn't going to get it. Please, she hiccuped, shaking her head, as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I let out a bitter laugh. So instead of standing by me, you ran straight into another man's bed. Her face twisted in shame. I thought I lost you. I took a step forward, forcing her to look me in the eyes. No, Olivia, you didn't lose me. You threw me away. She sucked in a sharp breath, her body trembling. The weight of her choices was finally settling in. "I don't have anyone else," she whispered, voice barely audible. I tilted my head. "And whose fault is that?" Her breath hitched. She had no answer, because there wasn't one. For years, I had given her my love, my trust, my loyalty. And the second things got hard, she left. Now, she was standing in front of me, desperate and broken. But I was no longer the man who would catch her when she fell. She was on her own. Olivia's hands trembled as she wiped her tear-streaked face. She was losing control, and she knew it. "Please," she murmured, voice raw. "Just tell me what to do. How do I fix this?" I shook my head, chuckling under my breath. She still didn't get it. "You don't," I said simply. Her eyes widened. But I love you," I scoffed. "You don't get to say that now." She grabbed my arm, desperation seeping from every pore. "I was stupid, I was weak, but I never stopped loving you." I yanked my arm away. "Love?" My voice was sharp. "You don't betray the people you love, Olivia. You don't abandon them when they need you the most." She crumbled, shoulders shaking. "I thought he could take care of me. I smirked coldly. "You thought he was an upgrade. And when you realized he wasn't, you came crawling back." She looked down, silent, because it was true. I took a deep breath, then spoke the words that sealed our fate. "I'm not your backup plan, Olivia, and I'm sure as hell not your second choice." Her breath hitched, and just like that, she knew. This was the end. Olivia's lips parted as if she wanted to argue, to fight for something that had died long ago, but no words came, because deep down, she knew there was nothing left to fight for. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "But you did." She sniffled, gripping her arms as if trying to hold herself together. I don't know how to live without you." I studied her for a moment. The woman in front of me wasn't the same person I had once loved. She was weaker, hollow, lost in the wreckage of her own choices. "That's not my problem anymore," I said, my voice calm but firm. Her eyes darted around, panic creeping in. She was realizing that this was real, that I was truly done. You won't even think about it," she pleaded. "Won't even consider." No, that single word was the last blow, the final nail in the coffin of our story. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. No rage, no regret, just relief. I turned away, ready to walk out of her life for good, and this time, she was the one left behind. I took a step back, letting the silence stretch between us. She wasn't going to get another chance to manipulate me. Olivia stared at me, her lips trembling. "Where will you go?" I almost laughed at the irony. She had left me, thrown me away like I was disposable, and now, she was the one afraid of being left behind. "Anywhere but here," I said. Her hands clenched at her sides, frustration flickering in her eyes. She wasn't used to not having control, not over me, not anymore. "Do you really feel nothing?" she asked, her voice shaking. "After everything we had." I studied her. This woman I had once thought was my forever. She had been my home, my safe place. But in the end, she was the one who burned it all down. "You made sure of that," I said simply. Her breath caught, and for a second, I saw it, the realization that she had lost me for good. No more begging, no more excuses, just the brutal truth. Without another word, I turned and walked away. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. As I walked away, I half expected Olivia to chase after me, to grab my arm, to scream, to beg, anything to pull me back into her chaos. But she didn't. I didn't turn around to check. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. The cold air hit me as I stepped outside. The night was quiet, peaceful, a sharp contrast to the storm I had just left behind. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. No more sleepless nights wondering where she was. No more gut-wrenching pain at the thought of her in someone else's arms. No more ghosts of a love that never really existed. I climbed into my car, gripping the steering wheel as a wave of clarity washed over me. She had left me for dead when I was at my lowest, but I survived. And now, I was stronger than ever. As I pulled onto the road, I glanced at my phone. A single unread message from Olivia stared back at me. "I'm sorry," I exhaled slowly. "Too little, too late. Without a second thought, I deleted it, and just like that, she was gone. The city lights blurred as I drove, my hand steady on the wheel. For the first time in years, my mind wasn't clouded by pain. No more doubts, no more second guessing. Olivia had been my past, but she had no place in my future. I thought about everything I had lost. The time, the trust, the love I had once given so freely. But then I thought about everything I had gained. Strength, clarity, freedom. She had expected me to crumble without her, but I had rebuilt myself into someone she could no longer reach. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check. I already knew who it was. She was drowning in the consequences of her choices, just like I once had. But unlike me, she had no one left to pull her out. As I turned onto the highway, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not hatred, just indifference. She was nothing more than a lesson now, a scar that no longer hurt. And as I drove toward a future without her, I realized I had finally won. The highway stretched before me, endless and open. A perfect metaphor for my future. No more looking back. No more wondering what if. No more wasting my time on someone who never valued me. Olivia was probably sitting in my apartment, staring at her phone, hoping I'd answer, hoping I'd give her another chance. But I wouldn't. She made her choice when she left me to struggle alone. Now she could struggle alone too. A familiar song came on the radio, one that used to remind me of her, but this time it didn't hurt. It was just another song, another moment in time that no longer defined me. I had spent so long grieving, so long trying to understand why she did what she did. But now I didn't care. I wasn't broken anymore, I wasn't lost. I was free, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. The road stretched ahead, and with every mile I put between myself and Olivia, I felt lighter. I had nothing to regret. I had loved her with everything I had. I had given her my trust, my loyalty, my future. She was the one who threw it all away. And now, she was the one left with regret. I imagined her sitting alone, realizing she had gambled everything on a man who had nothing to offer her. Realizing that the man she had abandoned had risen from the ashes, stronger than ever. The old me would have wanted revenge, would have wanted her to suffer as much as I had. But the man I was now, I didn't need revenge. I had already won. She had lost something real, something priceless, and I had lost nothing worth keeping. As the city lights faded behind me, I whispered 3 words to myself: no more regrets. And for the first time, I truly meant it. The farther I drove, the more I realized Olivia was nothing more than a ghost now. A shadow of a past life that no longer held power over me. I had spent so much time wondering why she did it, why she left when I was at my lowest. But none of that mattered anymore. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. I wasn't the man she had left behind. I was someone better, stronger, wiser, free. She could beg, she could cry, she could say she made a mistake, but I didn't care. I didn't need closure. I didn't need her. As the sun began to rise, a new thought settled in my mind. My life was mine again, and it was a life she could never touch. For the first time, I wasn't just moving on. I was moving forward. As the morning sun painted the sky with soft gold, a realization settled deep in my chest. Olivia's biggest punishment wasn't my anger. It wasn't public humiliation or financial ruin. It was this, being erased from my life. She had expected a dramatic confrontation, screaming, pleading, maybe even a second chance. But all she got was silence. She had gambled on my weakness, on the idea that I'd still love her, still need her. She was wrong. Somewhere, she was staring at her phone, waiting for a call that would never come. Sitting in an apartment that wasn't hers anymore, realizing that the man she betrayed wasn't waiting for her return. And that was worse than any revenge. because now she had to live with the one truth she could never escape. She had lost me forever. I parked at a quiet overlook, the city stretching far below, the place where Olivia and I once dreamed about our future. Funny how things change. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to her last message, one final, desperate attempt to reach me. Please, just talk to me. No, talking would mean she still had a place in my life. She didn't. I hovered over her name, then did what I should have done long ago. Blocked, deleted, gone. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred. It was peace. She made her choice when she walked away. I was making mine now. As I stepped out of the car, a cool breeze carried away the last traces of my past. I had no more questions. No more doubts. This was the end of our story. And the beginning of mine. What would you have done in my place? Forgiven her or moved on? Let me know in the comments.